This is Virginia This Morning on CBS 6.
Well, good morning to you. It's Friday, May 23rd, and you're watching CBS 6, where Central Virginia's only live local talk and entertainment show, Virginia This Morning, is up next. I'm Jessica Knoll.
Good morning, I'm Cheryl Miller. I'm here with relationship expert and psychotherapist Amy Lewis Bear. She's here today to share some very important information that everybody should know about toxic relationships. Her new book is called From Charm to Harm. Our conversation is coming up on Virginia This Morning. You know, in a toxic relationship, abuse can be physical, emotional, or both. In an abusive relationship, victims often don't seek help or even know where to turn. This morning, we're joined by psychotherapist Amy Lewis Bear. Her new book, From Charm to Harm, The Guide to Spotting, Naming, and Stopping Emotional Abuse in Intimate Relationships, offers up a lot of important information that could help you or someone you know. Good morning, Amy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I guess the first thing is the fact that we're talking about this because a lot of people don't want to talk about it, particularly if they're in a relationship that is toxic or abusive.
That is such a good point, because I really believe that emotionally abusive relationships, it's like a silent epidemic. People don't want to talk about it because there's so much shame attached to it. They want to hide it. And they don't understand what's happening either, and that's why I wrote the book.
And what you do is you're really focusing on the emotional abuse from the woman's point of view, but this is information that anybody can use.
Emotional abuse is psychological intimidation to gain control over another person, and it can happen between any two people. The abuser can be a woman as well. It can be in a parent-child relationship, a friend relationship, a boss-employee relationship. But I wrote my book focused in on intimate relationships because that's a different type of relationship. You think you're in a love relationship, but what your partner is doing, they have a deep-seated need to dominate you. And so what they're doing is they're sort of chipping away at your self-esteem on a regular basis. It's a pattern of attacking your sense of self-worth, your confidence, and it breaks you down. But because you think you're in a love relationship, you're confused, and a lot of the trouble is blamed on you.
You're a psychotherapist, but you wrote this because of your own personal experiences. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I had a 10-year relationship with someone who was emotionally abusive. And I was young, I didn't know what was happening. In fact, I didn't know it was an emotionally abusive relationship until later. I discovered that it was. I thought that a lot was blamed on me, and that's one of the tactics that emotional abusers use. And so I thought that, you know, it was something that I was doing, but what I didn't realize is that I think what is important to say about emotional abuse is that people who abuse, they use all sorts of tactics. They use denial, they use deception, they use contradiction, power plays, humiliation, intimidation, and this can be pretty subtle, especially in a love relationship, because they're saying, well, I love you. And they're doing things to hurt you and then saying, well, that's not my fault, you weren't listening, or you're too sensitive. And it's really a miserable situation to be in because it's very confusing.
And the denial is what sometimes allows the victim to become an enabler.
Yes, and that's a very good point. Also, in my book, I have about 30 effects of emotional abuse, but many of those are contributors because the more you enable the abuser, the more you disable yourself. And so it's very important to understand what's happening in the relationship, and a lot of people, they just don't know what they're up against. It's very important not to underestimate this condition that people have when they feel like they have to emotionally abuse others, because it's profoundly complex, it's destructive, and if it's underestimated, it can be very dangerous.
There's a lot of great information in your book, and one of the chapters you actually allow us to hold a mirror up and give us a quiz so that we can find out different things, and talks about, is your mate emotionally abusive, how has your relationship affected you, and are you contributing to your mate's abusive behavior? A lot of great questions in there to cause a lot of introspection.
Yes, and I put those quizzes in there because over the years, a lot of, mostly women have come to me, and they told me that they were feeling very anxious, very depressed, feeling hopelessness, and after questioning them, I discovered that they were in emotionally abusive relationships and they didn't know it, and that's because of the blaming, the accusations that it's your fault. So I put these quizzes in because there are a lot of people, I hear from a lot of people that say, well, you know, I've been in this marriage for 10 years and I didn't know it was emotionally abusive.
And the other thing you do is you also allow people to get information on what to do if you decide to leave a relationship, because that's one of the most difficult decisions to make, because if you have children or if you don't have a way to support yourself, or if you just feel trapped, getting out is the most important thing.
Yes, well, you know, you get so worn down when you're in an emotionally abusive relationship that you lose a lot of your vitality, a lot of your energy. You don't listen to your intuition, you disregard yourself, so you get stuck and it's hard to leave an abusive relationship. Now, there's no physical abuse, or there might be, but physical abuse is obvious. Emotional abuse, as I say, can be very subtle. So the first thing to be aware of is your own issues. You've got to be aware of your own psychological issues if you're in an abusive relationship. So you have to be aware of what's going on. You have to accept that it's not going to get better, that you need professional help and your partner needs professional help. And then you have to take some action. You have to find out what you need to do, and there are resources in the community. Build a support system, find a good therapist, someone who really understands what's going on, and then there are other ways that other things that you can do in the relationship as well to protect yourself.
This kind of takes us back to where we started, is that you have to talk about it.
Yes, you have to talk about it, and one of the major reasons why I wrote the book is because I found that the women who came to see me, they couldn't articulate what was happening to them. There was no language to describe emotional abuse. And so what I did in my book is I have about 80 emotional abuse tactics. I put words and definitions to a specific emotional abuse tactics. I think that this book is really going to help people who know that there's something that's not right in their relationship, because they're going to be able to take this book, read it, and then talk to others and say, this is what he's doing. And others can understand and help them with it and be supportive.
Because some of the things I looked at as I was reading this, I said, oh, well, I never thought of that as being emotionally abusive.
Yes.
It's just the way somebody is.
Well, the thing is that in every relationship, sometimes we say things that we don't mean, we have arguments, we have fights, but the hallmark of emotional abuse is systematic. So there's a pattern. It happens over and over again. And usually there's not a lot of regrets or remorse or sincere apologies on the abuser because they feel justified.
Well, on that we will end. Thank you, Amy Lewis Baer, for writing such an interesting and important book.
Thank you, Cheryl.
And that's going to do it for us here on Virginia This Morning.